Welcome to the CEO's Open Discussions Corner at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com. My name is Michelle Holliday. Today, we are welcoming to the show Mr. Marc Levy. Marc is an entrepreneur with some of the most spectacularly successful career moves on record. His career so far has spanned from technology to precious metals to cannabis and now back to precious metals. His latest venture is in gold. He is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Norsemont Mining, which is a precious metals exploration company that is trading on the stock market. This is going to be an amazing interview. Marc, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
We are thrilled and honored to have you here. Now, Marc, let's start off by laying the groundwork for everyone by talking about your own track record in business, because this is outstanding. This is just almost unheard of. Please tell everyone about your own professional background, because your resume is a string of highly profitable endeavors, startups, and I want everyone to be acquainted with your career before we dive into your current company.
Sure. So I started out in the tech sector back in the late 80s when tech was booming, and I'd been in it previously for a while. And I worked for some very influential people. And one of the companies that we built up in Canada became one of the largest internet service providers in Canada and line of sight for video. It was a very big success. It was a public company, went from 20 million to 1.9 billion. Unfortunately, I was just one of the key management guys, so I had some options and a little bit of equity. But the big guys, obviously at the top, made a lot of money. I was a lot younger back then, as you can imagine. And I mentored from a couple of billionaires in the tech sector. And throughout the years, obviously tech, had their meltdown in 2001 through 2003. Everything went sideways. And I kind of shifted gears at a certain point. I had met the chairman of one of our tech companies, happened to be a mining guy who opened my eyes a little bit to the mining sector. And in 2003, I left my nice high-paying job to found a little mining company at 5 cents that didn't have very many assets, but based on my mentors had said, Marc, it's time for you to do it yourself. And I founded a little company called International Norsemont Ventures, which became Norsemont Mining 1.0. And I was a tech guy, and I'm good with people. And so I went out and hunted down some of the best people that I knew of in the mining sector and wrote personalized letters and asked to go for coffees or phone calls or meetings just to pick their brain. And that's how I kind of built out a team. And we built up a company. From that, we acquired a big asset from Rio Tinto, one of the largest mining companies in the world. And we developed Constancia, which is a copper deposit in Peru, which has had about $2.5 billion of investments put into it, going into production. And we built the company up, and in 2011, we sold it for $520 million, about $5 a share. So everybody made out very well. Everybody
from 5 cents to $5, I would say.
Yeah, it was a pretty big win. We were actually expecting even more. So I actually, I'm very tough on myself. It would be inappropriate for me to say it's a failure, but we missed what I thought was the peak of market. We thought we could get even better value for it, but we did very well. Obviously, we created an exit. The project is a real project. It's one of the largest mining copper companies going into production, or copper assets going into production in South America. And so we also, during my tenure of running Norsemont, we came across another company called Petaquilla Minerals, Petaquilla Copper, and they had a large copper deposit in Panama, and we wanted to buy the company. And the CEO was a stubborn guy like me, and felt that it was worth a lot more than we were willing to pay. And so I took a very big personal position in the company. Our management team liked it and bought into the company. And then next thing you know it, we're almost basically running it. My CFO became their CFO, my board members. So we took kind of not control because we didn't acquire it, but we helped get the company going. And that company we sold to Inmet for about $350 million in 2011. So we exited that. That was a big copper deposit. Inmet's a big mining company. And another company that I was a founding shareholder of called Coal Hunter. We acquired a coal asset in Canada. Actually, we acquired a coal asset in the US and got a little bit of a punch in the nose. Didn't work. That asset didn't turn out too good. And we acquired another asset in Canada, which turned out a lot better. And we sold that to Cardero Group for $57 million. And I was also founder of a company called Rio Silver, a silver deposit in Peru, which we also sold. So in 2011, we exited the resource sector. We sold about $950 million of public companies. We did have some other private companies. And then I got a little bit back into tech, and we founded a payments processor called Payfirma, which we exited several years ago to Merco Payments. That was a private deal. And we got involved in some other oil and gas ventures, and then crypto a little bit, where I met Vitalik Buterin. And I think I made the biggest mistake of my life because
Ethereum?
I had an opportunity. Sorry?
Ethereum?
Yes. So I met Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, here in UBC at our university, in a room full of, high-profile geeks with Anthony Diorio. And I was a guy in the room that had a little bit of money, I guess. And I came from tech and I understood it. And so I kind of spoke with him to see if I could partner up, and I would give him some money so he can do something silly, because he was about 18 years old. And I would finance him, bring him in our office, and be a partner in Ethereum. And unfortunately, I didn't go down that path. And I got distracted from our analysts, and some of my colleagues introduced me to the cannabis sector. And we did a lot of research and interviewed probably the top 200 licensees in Canada to learn what they do right and wrong and educate myself, because I really didn't know the space. And then I ended up founding a company with two other individuals called Aurora Cannabis, which was the second largest cannabis company that went public. And we took that public and we raised money at 10 cents, 25 cents, 85 cents, $1, and it went to $16. It was a $16 billion company. Unfortunately, the cannabis sector hasn't been too good for the last year or two, actually the last year. And now it's, a 1-point-something billion dollar company. It's come,
Is that another failure in your book?
Aurora was a big success for our investors, obviously. I'm not happy where it's at, because we still own a lot of equity in the companies, because we believe in our investments and stay maybe too long, unfortunately. But as I said, I'm very hard on myself. That being said, we also got involved, and that was Canadian cannabis. And then I stepped away in towards the end of 2015. We stepped into 2016 into the US cannabis sector. And one of our shells, we did the largest cannabis company that I like a little more, called Curaleaf, which was a $5.5 billion IPO, 520 million raised at $8.67 a share. And I remember the price because it's one of the only cannabis companies where I'm in the money on the finance price that went out, because it's probably the best performing one, in my opinion, because most are below water. And so we did Curaleaf, and then we got involved with Cannabis One, which was a big success. And now, because of the sector, it's, I consider it a failure, but there was a lot of liquidity. We got in at a 50-cent IPO and 35-cent pre-financing, and it went to almost $5. So it did very well for people, but the whole sector has retraced, 75+% or more, unfortunately. I think valuations kind of like we're a bubble, like the tech sector. And so about a year ago, we figured we've got a lot of exposure to cannabis, and the world is not in a great shape, and debt is building with, governments, and we feel we need exposure to the mining sector. The mining sector has been in the dumps for a decade, and nothing ever stays in the dumps forever, as we all know. And we started to reassemble our mining team and look at mining projects. And we always like taking on projects that are what they call brownfields, like advanced stage projects. So we're not taking something that's grassroots and we're going to find something. And then once we find it, we're going to prove it up. And once we prove it up, we're going to permit it. And once we permit it, we're going to build a mine. That's too long of a process and too risky for my investors and myself. We like something that's kind of already there, and we can know that we can make it bigger and we can bet on the commodity going up. So we acquired an asset from Copec, which is a very large conglomerate out of Chile. They do about 22 billion in revenue, so big company. And they were exiting the gold sector at the wrong time, in my opinion, but they were entering the copper sector. They did a big investment into Peru for a copper asset. And so we acquired Chocalimpe, which is what I call Norsemont 2.0, which is our latest venture. It's a gold deposit in northern Chile. We've already got a large resource. There's 5.5 million ounces of gold equivalent, not 43-101 yet, but that's comprised of about 4.1 million ounces of gold and 62.5 million ounces of silver. So for guys that like silver, and I like silver, we've got a lot of that. And of course, if you love gold, well, we've got a lot of gold. And so that project, we can talk in more detail when you think it's appropriate. But that's basically where we're at now with Norsemont Mining. And our focus is definitely on the metal sector and the precious metal sector.
I have to say to you, you've used the term failure about 4 times in speaking about yourself when you're talking about taking something from 5 cents, all the way up into millions of dollars, and then other companies in billions of dollars. And then when you exit, they're in billions of dollars. And it's just, it's an extraordinary track record. It really is. It's very unusual. Do you, before we go into your company right now, do you consider this to be luck? Or do you think it's instinct that you've been able to do this?
So I do believe people make their own luck. And I think we've proven within our group to be ahead of the curve when we got into copper, which was 2003 was not super early, but really early for copper. Copper was sub $1. Obviously, we got into crypto a little bit early as well. As I mentioned to you, unfortunately, we didn't go in deep enough. And we got into cannabis early. And I think, we're back into the metals early. So I think you do make your own luck. I've always pride myself in listening to my elders and guys who've been around before. And when I talk to 5 people and 4 tell me the same thing, but one guy tells me something different that sticks out from the crowd, that's the guy I actually want to listen to because he's thinking ahead of the curve. And so, we've been good at, timing the market, which is critical, and kind of staying ahead of the curve. So, I attribute that to good instincts and creating our own luck and putting ourselves in the right place, the right time, for sure.
Okay. Now, focusing in on your current project, which is Norsemont Mining. Yeah. I want to start off by talking about your management, because I understand that your management team has actually been with you through a lot of these different companies and endeavors, right?
Yeah. I do like to circle myself with people that I know and trust for long periods of time, or people that have stellar track records and reputations. So yes, some of the team that's on our board and involved in the management of Norsemont day to day are people that were with me back in Norsemont 1.0. So we've got some people on our board that, oversaw the sale of our first project. And now obviously I've reassembled that part of that team here in Norsemont, what I call Norsemont 2.0. Because it's confusing for some people. So yes, we do have some pretty amazing individuals that have joined us and will continue to join us from the past. And then when we talk about team, there's a few new additions. I think we've gone from, Norsemont 1.0 was an amazing copper asset that created $500 million win for everybody with a stellar team. of individuals that are very experienced and very successful. And I think we've taken to the next level where the asset we have today, Chocolimpe, dwarfs what we had before. So there's an opportunity to create a much larger win for us and our investors. And we've augmented the team with some very high profile individuals, and we'll continue to do that with backgrounds that I think make me look like a junior. So I always like to surround myself with people that are more experienced and more successful than myself, so that I continually learn from them and follow their advice. So I can get into details on some of the management if you'd like, but there is some new people that definitely will help Norsemont get to our destination of creating a lot of value for our shareholders here and get this project into a production situation, or help definitely create an exit. And these guys, they're a little older than I am, maybe. Well, one of them is for sure, but definitely their track record is incredible to me. So, in my opinion,
you just speak so humbly. I looked through your profile and I've read up on you. You speak so humbly concerning what you've done, because you literally take baby companies and turn them into millions and billions of dollars, and then are disappointed that, you didn't turn them into trillions apparently, but it's a spectacular situation. I want to, hear a little bit about that management team, because talk to us about at least 2 or 3 of these individuals that have been with you all the way from Norsemont 1.0 through your cannabis ventures and then back again into precious metals.
Sure. So, one of the individuals is our consulting geologist. He was the chief geologist of Norsemont 1.0, is Tom Henriksen. He's actually a guy that was working at Rio Tinto at the time I acquired Constancia, our first deposit in copper in Peru. He was the guy who wrote the report. We acquired the asset, and I'm like, who's going to work on this for us that really knows it and can move quickly? And sure enough, we managed to get a knock on the door from Tom Henriksen. So Tom Henriksen, who's a PhD, he's a well-known geologist who's made several discoveries, hot mad in Turkey. He's responsible for so many discoveries, I can't even list them. I call him my nose. So when he likes a project, he smells the project, it's a good project, I have the confidence to invest behind it. So Tom Henriksen's been with me from the beginning of Norsemont 1.0, and he's with me again in 2.0. Very well-known gentleman who's worked all over South America, knows Chile. He was actually on Chocolimpe several decades ago, so he knows the project, which is also benefit to us. Another gentleman, Art Fries, who was the chief geologist of Wheaton River and primary geologist at Goldcorp. So these are very large, multi-billion-dollar mining companies. He was on the board of Norsemont. He's done a lot of work in Latin America and South America with me, especially in Peru with Constancia. And he oversaw with me, oversaw the exit of Norsemont. And he's a geologist that's very down to earth and down to the, feet on the ground. I could do the greatest thing. I sold the company. It's like, good job. Acquired the asset. Good job. For high fives. But
he's a little like you. I sold it for $1 billion. It should have been $2 billion.
Yeah, he's even worse. He's really tough on me. But, I value his opinion and I trust him. He's a very smart man, and everybody in the market knows how he is. If he says something is good, it's likely that it's not good. It's great. Yeah. So, that a lot of people like that. So he's quite, down to earth and very trustworthy. And then we have several other employees that worked with me in the past with Norsemont that are in our team as well. And I'd love to definitely talk a little bit about 2 other key guys that are the newcomers to our team. Bill Katsouras is one of our directors, and he's chair of several of our committees on our board. He's the chairman of Wheaton River Precious Metals International, which is a multi-billion-dollar behemoth. Yeah. And he was also behind Endeavor Financial, Endeavor Mining. He's raised about $4 billion for small and mid cap companies, which definitely dwarfs me. And he's a CPA, CFA, super amazing guy, very well connected. And, I think his network of potential investors as well as potential exits, because he's been involved in $25 billion in M&A transactions and mergers and acquisitions. So here's a guy that has the right Rolodex when we're ready and we've de-risked the asset to help us either A, finance it to production, or B, create an exit. So we have two good avenues there. So Bill's a really key guy on our board and been active with us, and he's actually invested in the company, so he's got money at stake in these levels. Another gentleman that's probably the most prominent guy and a little older than us, he hopefully doesn't kill me for that. David Lang is our chief engineer. He's chair of our technical advisory board. He was the COO of Quintana Resources, Equinox Gold, and several other gold companies that have been acquired for $500 million or more, or that have market caps of billions of dollars. As well, he was one of the key guys behind Endeavor Financial, Endeavor Mining, which are multi-billion-dollar companies. And he's oversaw $25 billion in mergers and acquisitions in his career, worked for Standard Bank. And one of the most key things about him is, he was born in Chile, but he's not what we would consider Chilean, but he was born there. So he knows the culture, he knows the language, but he was an outsider from Western world. And back in 1988 through 92, he's the guy who put Chocolate into production for Shell. So Chocolate was the third largest gold producer when he put it into production. So now I have the guy who actually knows the project, put it into production in Chile on our team, who also obviously has been involved with, so many successes that I would say makes me look like a failure in my opinion, because I'm tough on myself, as you know, but he's been around a little longer, and I'm so happy to have him part of our team. He's an investor in the company, and we definitely leverage his expertise and his knowledge and his network. So, David is definitely a key guy that understands our asset and the potential of our asset, obviously. So that's huge for us. That puts us in a really good position to have people like that on our team.
This is a team of titans.
Yes.
This is extraordinary. Now, Mark, before we go any further into this project itself, I want to let everyone know what your tickers are and where you trade.
Sure. We trade on the Canadian Securities Exchange, and the ticker symbol is NOM for Norsemont Mining. And then we also trade on the OTCQB, which our ticker symbol is NRRSF. And hopefully by the end of the year, our CFO, who's a guy that does a lot of NASDAQ deals, is pushing us to move on to the NASDAQ as well, which, that would be, for me, a good strategy to get access to better capital, better liquidity, better exposure. Obviously, we think that's smart. So we're heading down that path. But right now we're trading on those two markets.
Yes. And your team, the knowledge is just so important for investors. Anyone that's putting their money into a company, it's so important to know the management. Everyone always says we invest in the people,
Correct.
And any successful investor does. Now, I want to go a little bit further into this project in Chile, because it's very interesting how you acquired it, what it's worth, and what you see in the foreseeable future in terms of it.
Sure. I mean, we went looking for projects before gold had its big run. And I guess while COVID was rampant and going bananas a little bit, we decided to pull the trigger and acquire this asset from Copec. And I had put up a guarantee for the money because they're a big company. They don't care about small public companies raising money. They don't believe in that. And so we ended up putting a bid in to provide them cash and shares to have some equity interest for the team that owns it. And obviously took it public through Norrismont. And we've ended up paying about, 10 million with cash and shares approximately to own 100% of the asset. And the key thing with this asset is because it was an existing producer, there is a lot of infrastructure that was already put into place. So there was roads, power, backup power generator, water. We've got we've got 4 permits, but 2 operating permitted wells. And we've got a lab, and we've got power that's been brought to site, which is very expensive, year-round road access, camp. So there's about $200 million worth of infrastructure that we've inherited, which is incredible. And I only found that out from a conversation with David, actually, a few weeks ago through an interview that we were doing. Because I said, some smart guy said, like, what's this worth? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good question. So now we understand that, and we have a 3,000 ton a day mill, and the mill is in good shape, and they run it on a regular basis to keep it in good order. Obviously, it's going to require some minor maintenance and fixes and adjustments to go back in production, but you've got a huge asset starting point. So that's part of our asset. The other part is because Shell and Northgate and these other big companies did a lot of work, we got all that data. There's been over 1,700 drill holes and about 130,000 meters of drilling, which is worth about 50 million in itself of just pure drilling data. So we've inherited quite a bit of infrastructure and data for what we've paid for the asset.
Now, Mark, what did you pay for the asset? Did you say 10 million?
10 million.
10 million, and it's worth...
We paid 10 million, and we gave them some equity in the company. So there's big equity ownership. So they get the upside in the company as well. But yeah, we paid 10 million bucks for the assets basically. And it was good timing. You talked about making, timing. I would say, if I was smarter, I would have bought it a few months earlier. Might have been a little easier. Maybe it would have been a bit cheaper. Who knows? But timing was perfect. Gold wasn't really running. COVID was going bananas. The world was coming to an end. We didn't know what was going on. And I said, look, this is going to cause some serious uncertainties, and we need to get exposure in our own personal portfolios with me, my partners, my investors, and we've got to pull the trigger on this gold asset. It's too big and too good to not move forward with. So
that's just amazing. So the property is worth about 250 million as it sits.
Based on so that's just on the infrastructure and the work. If you look at what analysts would typically say, there's 5.5 million ounces of gold, and most analysts are somewhere in the vicinity of $50 to $100 an ounce in the ground. So depending if you want to take a median of $75 an ounce, you've got $300-400 million market cap value in the ground right now. So our market cap, if we were to bring this to 43-101 standards and get judged by some of the bigger banks in Canada, for example, they would say, hey, you guys are worth $400-500 million based on gold in the ground. Like Desjardins Bank, which is a big bank back east, and they're invested in our company. They value gold at $96 an ounce, Canadian. And then you've got Haywood valuing higher risk regions at $56, which we'll talk about Chile if we want. It's not a high risk region, it's a low risk region. So the numbers move around based on analysts, but essentially, yes, there's a huge multiple value that's already in the ground. And we can talk more about that because we're not here for what's already in the ground. We're here for what hasn't been proven in the ground, which we believe.
Exploration, right.
Yeah, we strongly believe there's huge upside, a multiple to what we have today. So it's quite a large target we've got set.
I have an observation here. I have a suspicion that since they sold that to you for 10 million, knowing they put 50 million into it and probably knowing what's in the ground, they probably did it based on the fact that they could get part of the company, right? Rather than the cash.
Because they can get part of the company, but also their focus. I mean, COPEC is a very big company, and this project, as big as it is for us, they're doing 22 billion in revenue. So if this was to generate 50 million dollars a year to their bottom line, it's not big enough. And they've taken an investment in a project that I'm familiar with in Peru. I mean, they're putting about $1 billion into Peru in a copper asset called Minagusta, which that might spit out 100, 200 million to their bottom line. And their focus is more longer term copper. And they weren't, I guess, maybe as keen on the gold sector. And don't forget, we did this before kind of COVID really showed its head. And before gold started to run, when gold was, $1,400, we were doing the deal. And of course, we did the deal, COVID hit, gold started to move 15, 16, 17, 18 plus, almost, 2000 and coming off recently. But so it was good timing as well for us. And of course, it wasn't core for them. There's other assets they were exiting in Chile in the gold space as well that we looked at. That we were interested in as well. But this was the kind of most compelling situation, obviously, for us.
Yeah. Now, Mark, you're sort of the master of massively profitable exits, is the way I would term it. What is the plan from today until you exit the Norsemont mining? What kind of value, profit creation in terms of numbers do you predict? And what's your vision for this one?
Sure. I guess my vision is based on some of our technical team's expertise and knowledge. And from what I've been told and what I've seen in data, we're targeting to explore the project. And the project itself was only drilled down to about 70 or 80 meters. And typically these epithermal gold systems are down to 250 meters. So we look at it and say, hey, we can go 3 or 4 fold down. And then the project, it's a very large land position. We've only explored about 20, 25% of the project. And we even have an 8-kilometer strike with a dozen targets on it. So we're targeting about 20 million plus ounces of gold. And from my, current numbers that I use from some of the banks that I'm familiar with, we believe we can create a value of up to 2 billion in market cap. So we've got a long ways to go. We're at 100 million market cap today. We have a lot of work to do to de-risk the project. So our game plan is to drill the project, de-risk it, and then either put together a situation where we can create an exit to a much larger gold producer, or B, a production situation. And the beauty is we want to fast track this. So we believe there's huge upside. I haven't sold $1 billion plus mining company yet. So my intentions is to sell a $1 billion plus or multi-billion dollar mining company. That's my aspiration. That's my personal goals. And I believe, with the current gold environment and the asset we have and the team we have, this project provides me that opportunity and that vehicle to hit that milestone personally and professionally, but also to generate a return for myself, my investors, and everyone that supports us. So it's going to take a lot of hard work. We do want to move really quick and not miss the mark. So, we're in a marathon, but we want to sprint this marathon. And so our game plan here is to drill 50, 60,000 meters, take it to a pre-feasibility and PEA, and then get to the point where we think some larger companies will definitely want to acquire the asset and create an exit. And if that doesn't happen, we're not going to sit on our feet saying we're for sale. We've got the technical team that put it in production before, and we've got the expertise, and we've got the infrastructure. So we'll put it in production. We'll become a very large cash flowing opportunity and provide dividends to our shareholders if we can't get that exit. So we have both avenues, and the project was previously permitted. So we have a mining permit in place. To get water permits, to get environmental permits, to get electricity to a project, to get the mining permit, those are multi-year processes. So we feel because we can skip all that, we'll create an exit in 24 months or a decision to do a production situation. So for us, 24 to 36 months, we're either sold or we're producing. That's a pretty realistic and tight time frame. most mining companies can't say that because they may have some gold, they still have to prove it up. They don't have the main amount of data and infrastructure we have. So we're in a really good position, and we have really good supporters and shareholders and partners. I don't even refer to my investors as shareholders. Most of them I refer to as partners. That's how I see things a little differently, and they're very supportive. We've got a lot of eyes on us right now in the mid-cap mining sector that are like, okay, let's see how this turns out and how big it gets and how much our team can de-risk it, because I believe there'll be a big area of M&A over the next 24 months. I think next year and the year after, there's going to be a lot of M&A. And that's why I've got two of the best guys I know in the world on our team that understand the M&A market, right? So I think with that will help create a potential exit for us too. So
this is so, serendipitous that these major players actually started off with the very project that you're working right now on. They knew it way back when. They know it well. It's huge. This is just a spectacular opportunity. I so appreciate the time that you've taken to come on this show to introduce this company to our audience. And this has been an amazing interview. Please tell everyone where they can learn more about your company, and also please repeat your tickers for everyone.
Sure. So they can go to our website, which is norsemontmining.com. And I think you could probably post that up. And our ticker symbol on the CSE in Canada is NOM. And our ticker symbol in the US on the OTCQB is NRRSF. And of course, they can also reach out on our website to info and get a hold of our IR people and get any questions answered that are needed. And I do appreciate you providing us this avenue and this exposure and getting to speak with you, and definitely look forward to hopefully following up as we progress. And thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Most definitely. We will keep in touch with you as this goes, because this is going to be a spectacular story, and I want to make sure all of our audience understands what's happening here too. And so you're headed for the NASDAQ also, right? You mentioned that?
Yeah, that's the game plan. Our CFO, Coolwant, has done several NASDAQ deals, and he's the driving force behind that and convinced me to see a new light. And I do understand that market. I've been looking at NASDAQ as a much better avenue for access to capital with less dilution and better liquidity and bigger market, obviously, and exposure and access to funds. So it's definitely a smart stepping stone, in my opinion. And we're definitely working towards that for sure.
Well, it has been so great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on this show today.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, we will have you back probably within the next 6 months. What would you say? I don't want to, you might exit by then. What's the best timetable to have you back?
Hopefully not too soon. We still have a lot of value to create for people, but yeah, you never know what happens in the market. Definitely, I think once we execute on some of our drilling and get some results out, we're getting an updated 43-101 report of our resource, which will create, I think, a lot of value and change the game a little bit for us. So I think once those things happen over the next quarter, it would be great to touch base with you again and give an update to your followers and yourself, obviously.
Indeed. Mr. Mark Levy, founder of Norsemont Mining. For the CEO's Open Discussions Corner, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com.